Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. This is the second hour of News Check. We'll be focusing on the education sector based on the competency-based curriculum and the upcoming examinations that is set for October all the way to November from KPSEA to KCSE. And of course, in terms of how learners are of course, taking over this particular assessment that will be happening in those particular months. Some are new to this particular system that the government has put in place. You do remember the various recommendations that was made by the Presidential Working Party. Now, interestingly, this will be a two-session here in the capital and all the way to Kisumu County. Our very own, that is Wycliffe Okech, will be speaking to the Kenya Private School Association Chair, that is Charles Onchome, in terms of how the private schools are, of course, ensuring that this particular guidelines that are given by the Ministry of Education and other stakeholders are being implemented within their various institutions. Here in studio we'll also be having guests, but we'll be speaking on the recommended guidelines under the competency-based curriculum. You do know that the Presidential Working Party suggested that we move away from the initial 2633 system to the new 26243. Now, that will mean that in the pre-primary, that is ECD, 2 years, 5 to 6 years old. Primary school will have 6 years, that is 7 to 12 years old, grade 1 to 6. Junior secondary school, that is the JSS, will have at least 2 years. 13 to 14 years old of students will be taking in that particular program from grade 7 to 8. Senior secondary school will be 4 years, 15 to 18 years old, grade 9 to 12, and then tertiary university, it will be 3 years depending on the program that one has undertaken. We do know that programs that even supersede this particular timelines that have been set within the new curriculum. Now, joining us here in the studio is none other than Susan Wanjiru. She is the director of Kuza International School. Susan, welcome.
Thank you.
And also joining us, a familiar face, Constatine Okello, an education policy expert. Constatine, welcome once more.
Thank you very much.
And let me start with you, Susan. Given that you're the director of this particular Kuza International School, in terms of implementing this new curriculum, how is it so far in schools?
In terms of implementing the CBC, it has been well. I think our biggest challenge is understanding, especially from the parents. That has been a big challenge. I don't think enough education has been given to them on what CBC is or CBE is and what is expected for them and what they should expect from their learners. So that has been the biggest challenge. But in terms of our infrastructure in our schools, not so, the difference is not so much because the classes are already there. But what we concentrate on now is that we have to have infrastructure for things like fields, we have to have things like balls, because a lot of what they're learning now is very practical compared to what we had before in the 844 system. So now we have a lot of practical learning. So we have to have a lot of labs. We never had a home science lab in the primary section. Now you must have, because there's nutrition where the kids have to cook. So things like that. Now in primary school, kids are going to do agriculture. So we have to have a place where kids can plant. So you also need a lot of space. Yeah, so in terms of that, that is how us as educational and people who are supporting education, that's what we are doing to support the CBE.
Constantine, in terms of implementation, where are we as a country and what tremendous strides have we made so far?
Okay, that's a very good question because, you know, we operate on standards. I think it's good that we adopted the standards and then we have what we call risk and opportunity register. As just the madam has said that we have to keep on improving so that we can meet the required standard. But if we just come with the policies and without checking the field, the parent or the teachers might not understand. And then it can create what we call a depression to adopt a new system. Because if you get education, you understand something better, and then implementation will come much easier. So if in terms of the government schools, you'll find that our schools does not meet the equal standards. You'll find that some are improved and some are still a bit low. So that one might affect other schools, and other schools might perform very well. So in the future, I think it's good to have what we call risk and opportunity register, so that we can have a uniformity, and then we can also have the education to the parent, so that we move together to develop our country. Thank you very much.
And let me come back to you, Director. We're talking about how the learners have received this particular new curriculum. In terms of receptiveness, how are learners reacting to it?
For CBE, I think the learners are reacting to it well. Learners love it because now we spend a lot of time outside class, unlike before, where everything we used to do, everything was in class. So now, even in a normal lesson, we have to take at least 10 minutes and walk about. For the younger learners, we go to the field or they walk around the school, and now they learn by seeing and they learn by doing. So the written part, a lot of writing has been removed. A lot of cramming has also been removed. So it is easier for the learner to remember what they have learned actually in this new system. I think for the learners, it's working well for them. So it's up to us as the educationalists to make sure that we provide the facilities that are required. But for the learners, the system is very good. It works for them. Yes.
And Constatine, coming back to you, you know, many parents, you just clearly stated in terms of infrastructure, comparing public to private school has been a little bit different. In terms of implementation in the private will be easier because there are less learners, because more money is being spent within the private sector. Parents are catering for the fees of their own children. But for the people who are unable to reach those heights in taking their own children to private, in terms of public affordability, how can that be addressed?
That's a very good question again. Once more, that's why it's very important that the government should have done what we call risk and opportunity register, and then they understand where there's gaps. And those gaps now, they can either subsidize by giving money to the schools so that some parents, all the children can get education, because education is very, very important. Yeah. So if we do not actually consider that one, it might affect public schools, and private schools can end up doing very well, and then they let the public school to lag backward. And that's why I'm saying that it's better to have what we call a uniformity or a standard, whereby where the government gives sufficient funds to ensure that the standard is met, because the standard is what's going to give the outcome. So the outcome is the result after the education. So as far as I'm concerned, you see, now most of the children, they come from poor schools in the village. We'll find that some of them, even they go to school without eating, and even parents are being told to contribute the money which they don't have. So actually it affects the children. A system might be very good, perfect, but the implementation might really be a problem because of the income of the parents. That's why the government should put more emphasis, and it should not sit and take the decision. No, we should have the standard and see how to meet all those gaps so that we can have a system which actually benefits each and every child of this country. And also another thing is also that outside also they must be preparing to receive those people, because innovation in Kenya is not really taken very seriously, because we have not actually prepared also the government institution to adopt the innovation. If you look at the system, our system, education is good. Children who complete the school, for example, you'll find that most of them, they have not been absorbed. You see, now if the CBC come, the government is going to concentrate on the CBC students and then forget those people who use the old system and will not be having the employment. So it might affect the country. So government has to work very hard to ensure that the country is moving forward with everyone. Either the CBC and all those people who are doing the old system, we move together as a country so that we succeed.
And coming back to you, Susan, we're talking about existing structures that have been there for years to come. People still talk about the old system, which was the 844 system. Now having this particular new system, how do we move as a society to embrace it? You clearly stated now that the parents need to be self-aware of the changes that have been made. So what are those gaps that not only schools are required to address, but the Ministry of Education as well?
In terms of gaps, I think the most important would be probably education awareness. They need to educate, especially parents, the community, on what it is that is required from this system. I think another gap we have is in terms of education, especially of our teachers. Remember, these are the same teachers who are teaching the 844 system. And so they've gone for a 2-day training, and now we are expecting them to teach the new CBE. Changing mindset doesn't take place in 2 days. So in terms, they normally go for retooling, which is good, but I think we can do more. I think in terms of for the teachers, the government can do more. And also in terms of support, CBE is not a cheap system. It's expensive because the initial is very expensive, because we have to install like labs, for the schools, whether it is government or private, it's still a cost. And also for the parents, it's a cost because before they just used to buy textbooks. Now we are telling them we need knitting, we need them to buy all these tools. Some of them we even ask for them to buy looms, which are not even locally available or available in their vicinity. Though the system requires that we use locally available material. But remember, even that teacher who is asking for that loom probably has not been trained on how to make it. And now we are expecting this teacher to read the textbook and train the learner. So I think those are real gaps that we need to address. Yeah.
I'll be coming to you, Constantine, just in a few, but let me go down to the field now to Kisumu County, where our very own, that is Wycliffe Okech, is joining us. He's going to talk to the Kenya Private Association Chair, Charles Onchome, in terms of how those private schools are also inculcating the CBE into their program and how learners are being receptive. Once we do get a hold of him, I do hear we have lost him, but as and when we get him once more, we'll be going to him. Let me come now to Constantine. Constantine, we're talking about in terms of the cost effectiveness of this particular program. Before, she has talked about it, that parents were not able, were only catering for textbooks. Not so many interactions when it comes to giving out money. Now parents are required to give learners equipments, textbooks keeps on changing. You witnessed the back and forth between the publishers and the Ministry of Education, especially under CBE. So in terms of ensuring that parents not only cater for their children, because every parent wants their kids to have the best education ever so that they can build their life afterwards. In terms of ensuring that parents are being met with cost effectiveness when it comes to the implementation of CBE, so what are certain policies would you recommend to the Ministry of Education to address this particular issue?
Yeah, you know, policy knows the priority. In my view, the priority is the organizational structures, which is the priority. So the organizational structures is that they could have done assessment to understand the capability of the parents in the village, if they are able actually to support the CBE. You see, if the parents are very poor, you see, the system will be affected because they will not be able to contribute and children will stay at home, and it's going to affect the whole country. So that could have been the priority. So the planning matters a lot before you come with the policy, because in quality management system, we normally prioritize the planning. So the planning is that the parents should also have the meetings, and then the feedback from the village, the parents or the teachers should give the ministry the feedback from the village, how to improve the system, because based on their capability, so that the government can know how much money is sufficient to cater for all these children. Because the worst thing is that we find that some children are going to school and others are not going to school. That's the worst thing we can have as a country, because we shall not be moving to the right direction. So the issue is they have to do what the way I say that if they have the risk and opportunity register, including each and everything, they will know all the infrastructures needed. And then now they will know how to cap those gaps so that we can improve. For sure, for private school, it's much better because parents are at least a bit able. But in the village, you will find that some parents are completely unable to support the education. And you can try to investigate that situation, how their children are going to suffer. So that's where the government should put emphasis, because a good system must aim to uplift the weakest person should be uplifted. So actually the government might, the evaluation could have determined the money needed, and the government look at the resources so that they can sufficiently support the education so that we move as a country. Yeah.
Director Susan, I'll be coming to you. Let me rope in my colleague, that is Wycliffe Okech, who is set to interview the Kenya Private School Association Chair, Charles Onchome. Wycliffe, you can hear me. Good morning. The conversation has started. We're talking about the implementation of the CBE program, not only in the private schools, but in the public schools.
Many thanks, Abdiaziz. Back in Nairobi, like you mentioned it, we are live from Kisumu, and this morning I am going to engage the national chairperson of the Kenya Private Schools Association, that is Mr. Charles Onchome, on the subject matter that is under discussion right there that you are having also in the studio. We know that both private schools and public schools are all regulated by the Ministry of Education, and all the policies that are enacted by the government affect all the schools regardless of the category. And this morning, I will engage the national chair of the Kenya Private Schools Association on the sort of collaboration that the private schools, or that the association is having with the Ministry of Education in furthering the education of the learners. Mr. Charles, if you basically can move here and look into the camera. This morning, we are talking about the back to school. Our prime focus is on the rollout of the CBC learning, and the CBC curriculum necessitates continuous assessment of learners. Paint for us the picture as it is on the kind of collaboration that the government, or rather the Ministry of Education, is having with the private schools in assessing continuously the learners.
Thank you so much. The government, through its sagas, has got a very vivid and lively plan which we fall into. This is like we have in assessment we have the Kenya National Examinations Council, we have the KICD, we have the Teachers Service Commission, and we have the Directorate of Quality Assurance. All these sagas help in the assessment and evaluation of the children. One, the Directorate of Quality ensures that learning environment is up to date, is good before it is approved. So an assessment that takes place must focus into the environment where that assessment is taking place, and that is looked into by the Director of Quality Assurance. Then the Teachers Service Commission, through their CEO and their staff, ensures that the people who are overseeing these children are well trained and are able to do those assessments as per the ministry's guidelines. So that is another angle we fall into. Then we have the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, this KICD, who prepares the guidelines for learning, the materials for learning, and that is what is used for assessment. And then the person now that prepares this assessment is the Kenya National Examinations Council. And these are the people now who prepare the assessment. They are brought to our schools, and then the assessments and the evaluations are done by our teachers. That is the plan that is in place, and I think it is so seamless. I don't think there's anything to fault about it.
Quite a cutout framework there for the collaboration between the MOE and the Kenya private schools. And still on that sort of collaboration, we know that the JSS learners, the junior secondary school learners, through that continuous assessment, they are selected and placed in senior schools. How are private schools integrated in this exercise?
Thank you. This is a new method of assessment, how the children are going to be placed into from junior school to senior school. And we, at the moment, have set up a committee of the Kenya private schools and the Ministry of Education through the permanent secretary in the ministry. And that committee is looking into ways of harmonizing that at the moment. It is still ongoing. Assessments, I hope, when they finish, will be seamless, because we have 4 of our members in that committee. The ministries also have 4 people. They are looking at the modalities of placing children in senior school next year. So at the moment, that's all I can say about it, because it is still work in progress.
Still work in progress, and actually that is the message that the Ministry of Education has continued to put out there, because this is a new curriculum, this rollout still continuing, and any worries or other concerns that the parents could be having in terms of the rollout of this exercise, it is well known that it is an exercise that is continuously going on. And we are living in a digital age, the age of artificial intelligence, the age of most things are done digitally. And even the assessment of learners in the future is going to take place digitally. How are the private schools embracing e-learning?
Thank you so much on this. I want to bring to your attention that Kenya private schools is not a homogeneous thing. This is a conglomeration of various schools coming together under an umbrella association, the so-called KPSA. And we allow every institution to be able to manage their institutions as per the guidelines given by the ministry. So we do not have the powers as an association to say this school must do this or this one must not do this. That is ensured and still being carried out by the ministry's arms that I've talked about there. But I would like to say that as an association, we bring up our members together. Even at the moment, we'll be taking a team of them to China. And the purpose of such visits is to be able to look at what the other people are doing at the other part of the world and be able to come up with good practices so that we implement them. We have done this over the years. And in line with that, we also see, because most of these gadgets come from China, so we expect our members to be able to do shopping or get contacts of various manufacturers of these assets to be able to bring them back home to enable learning to take place. But when it comes to the government, I think we have got the issue of the government. We have had that cry of the government supporting private schools, and that has been a very lively discussion, but many times it hits a snag when they say this is a private institution. They do not want to put anything in it. Others would agree, others do not see the light, want to see the light of the day. But I want to say this. These private institutions, if they are enabled, I think they can help the government bridge up financial gaps. And how do we bridge them? I would like to say that if the government would have an empowerment fund, which should not be a free fund, but fund which can be able to jumpstart things like the AI in schools now, because these are very costly things for the private sector education. They borrow it and pay it back with a margin which is affordable, not what we currently go through in the banks. I think that would be a way forward rather than ask the government to give us money. An empowerment fund would be able to spur up the private education sector to ease up the pressure in the government schools, and also to be able to create more revenue for the government. Because when there's growth, obviously they will be able to pay more money to the exchequer. So that is a collaboration. Actually, we are also discussing with the PS through the ministry, so that if it goes through, I think that would be a better thing. But so far, it's still just work in discussion. Okay. Yeah, but we on the other hand, as I said, we are not homogeneous. There are quite a number of the private sector, private schools that have put up digital learning. Even here, where we are at the Golden Elite, we have relayed digital learning for quite some years now since the COVID-19. And we are not the only one. There are quite a number of schools, but we are not on the same way, the same plane with the others. Others are struggling. This is why we are saying we need that kind of empowerment fund to enable all these schools to come to par with digital learning in our schools. Yeah.
Talking about that fund, and it is now, it's out there that the resources are quite limited, and quite often we see the public institutions actually complaining about late disbursement of resources to the, capitation to their schools. I don't know how feasible this is possible. This is in terms of creation of that fund in support of the public or the private institutions. How feasible is it?
You know, like when you are confronted with the problems, you must look for solutions. And I'm trying to offer a solution through the KPSA. We are not going to say now that the government should capitate all private schools, because even their own schools, they are struggling. We can see it, it's live. We have had the cries from the Treasury. But we are saying a one-off fund is not a big deal. The government can sacrifice. Besides, if you invest in something, you reap more. So we are simply telling the government, invest in private schools by putting in an empowerment fund, which they pay back, create more revenue, open up more revenue for the exchequer, so that they would be able also to bridge the gap of the financial constraints they have. So that's what we are saying. The government must also just have some affirmative action to reinvest in some of these sectors to spur growth, because when they are big, obviously the revenue the government is going to get from them will be big. So if the government says, yes, we don't have the money, then we will not also have the money. So it is a win-win situation for both the government and the private sector. Nobody is saying, give us free money. I know people would be saying, oh, private schools cannot be given free money because they are private institutions. Nobody is asking for free money. We are only asking for money which can be paid back, which is affordable, which other countries do to their people. Like the people who come here to invest in our country, they only do better because they get their funding cheap in their countries. Okay. Yeah.
Fine. Our very last point of discussion this morning before we hand back to Nairobi, to the studio. We will come back here for the final word, but then our very last topic, point on this is that capitation to public schools. We know that you are speaking from regarding your position as the chairperson of the Kenya Private Schools Association, but then the capitation to public schools, it is more often it is late. It comes late. Does this have any impact on private institutions?
You know, impact can be positive or negative. So obviously, when capitation to public schools is late, there is a negative impact on those schools. The learning cannot take place effectively because I believe there are materials that one is supposed to procure and be used in those schools. That cannot happen in time. And remember, school calendar has timelines that are very strict, and the syllabus follows weekly. So when something is late, I think that is work which is delayed, and it means that the students will not get the teaching and the facilities required for those teaching in time. So that is a negative impact. Now, as to whether it affects the private sector is another thing, because in the first place we don't get it. So that's why we are saying now that it is even hard to get it in public enterprises, public sector, why don't we forego the capitation and get the empowerment fund, which we can pay with some money to be able to also cushion the government by spurring our sectors. They will be getting more revenue, so they will possibly get more money to disburse to those schools. So the impact would be like positive if the government gave us money. Obviously, people say there will be defaulters. That happens all over the world. We have learned that when you are doing something, 70% is 100% if you want to get things done. Because the 30% might be looked down, okay, we have a success rate of 70%. So I cannot for sure say if the government does that, everybody will be paying time. Those defaulters can be 30%. But because I believe if we are paying taxes monthly, we can also be able to pay back that money equally the way we have been paying our statutory obligations to the government. So the impact will be that there will be a positive gain from what I call the empowerment fund going back to the government. The government can also use it to empower the public sector. Yeah.
The empowerment fund, which you seem to be very categorical on, and that is your rallying call this morning. But then we hold it right there. We are coming back to you for your final word. Abdi, we've been speaking with the chairperson of the Kenya Kenya Private Schools Association, Mr. Charles Ochome. And before we come back to him for his final word regarding the collaboration between the MOE and the private schools across the country, let me just hand it back to you so that you can continue that interview in studio briefly before you come back to us. Abdi.
Well, thank you so much, Wycliffe. That is a very interesting conversation that I want to even rope in my guest here with me. Let me start with you, Director. Talking about this particular empowerment fund, you have just heard from your chair just speaking about it, that is Mr. Charles Ochome. How feasible will that be for the government?
I think the empowerment fund is something feasible because generally this is not free money. It is money that is being repaid back. Already there is the youth empowerment fund. There is the empowerment fund for women. So an empowerment fund that supports businesses, because a private school is a business, and a business has to pay back for it so that it can borrow again. right? So, and I think private schools are, they're a good business, and the empowerment fund will go a long way because, as I said, we have a lot of investments to make. For example, computers are not cheap, right? And then we also have to build the labs, and there's a lot of infrastructure, and all these things need a lot of heavy money first before we begin even to reap any profits. So in terms of getting normal business loans, it becomes very expensive. And this has been the impediment to many schools for us to upgrade to where CBC needs us to be, or to where we feel that we need to be as people who are executing the CBE education. But if we had a bit of support from the government in terms of this empowerment fund, it would go a long way, because you can imagine if someone gives you money to buy your laptops or to build your classes, and then you pay back later and not with so much interest. You see, that for a business, that goes a long way. Unlike when you have to remember even the fees that the parents pay, all of it has a lot of expenses. Running a school is not easy, and it is a very cash upfront job. That is why most of the private schools, they normally ask for a lot of fees, because all these things that the children need, they need money, and it needs to be paid. So sometimes when you look at, when you're running your school, when you look at the books and the balances, you find out that if you were to save money to build the lab, it will take a long time. But if you're given the money up front, build the lab and pay it back, then that makes it easy, and it also helps us to support our learners. Yes.
Constatine, as you react to what the chair was saying, you've even heard him clearly stating that the risk of doing that, there could be defaulters. We know when it comes to giving out loans, we have seen with Hustler Fund, there are people who have defaulted. So how sure can we be as the government, when they allocate those particular funds, they will reap back what they sowed?
Okay, first let me emphasize what I said when I started. I said that the first thing, if we have a good plan and we have risk and opportunity register, then it will indicate all those things. So it will be showing red and green where it works very well. So it will be very easy for government to either adopt it, because if it remains red, it means that it's not performing very well. And also, he said that they're sending a team to China. I have been into the culture development. You know, to develop culture is a very, very complicated thing, because people behave differently. And then, if you go and adapt something from China and you bring it in Kenya, it might not work. You might copy it exactly the way it is, but it's not going to work because of our culture. Our culture is different. For example, what is affecting education? We have direct courses and indirect courses. What are the indirect causes? Indirect causes, things like corruption, things like delay. So once you delay the money to disperse the money to the school, already it's affecting the school. And the time is like water. Once it flows, it's already passed. So it's government, which is actually under the organization, to ensure that there is a seamless operations, whereby they disperse money on time, they support private school, they support public school. As I said, if we have a standard, we're going to have a best outcome. But if we do not have a standard that everybody is struggling on his own, the end result is a lot of problems. And that's what we're trying to avoid. And actually, the chairman talked very well that there's a lot of challenges affecting the private school also, which government might not be knowing or they're knowing. But if we have where it is black and white, it becomes easier parent to discuss, official to discuss, then the CS to discuss. So when it goes to the CS now, he knows exactly what is supposed to be done, so that we avoid what we call triangulations, where things delay. And somebody might be suffering, some children might be suffering, and nobody knows. So actually, we should adopt such things. And then that one is called a management system, which can be done, and then we have a uniformity. Because as you see, Chairman said that some schools are doing very well, some are not doing very well, which is very true. You might not know if you do not have the standard. So I'm emphasizing that we have a standard. As we adopted CBC, we have a standard of operations, whereby all the risks are known and are being addressed adequately by the government, so that we succeed in bringing up children with children who are informed. But we should not inform, because when we do the meeting, what we forget is indirect factors. We don't discuss about indirect factors because they're not seen completely. For example, if the money is given to school and then this misappropriated, you see, that's indirect factor. It was not factored in the first place. Now that money has been misappropriated, it's not going to function very well. So they will keep quiet And then the government, where it is, it knows that the school is running properly. And that's why it's very good that with the current technology, the way we talked about the technology, all this school can be looped into one system whereby the risks are known, risks are reported and they are known. And also the teachers mostly play a significant role because teachers are the ones who are experiencing all these problems. The issue contributed by the teachers should be evaluated and then improved so that we meet their needs. And that's very important. That's how the standard works because most likely the world is operating on quality management system, which is ISO 9001:2015. So once we adopt that one and we move together, definitely we are going to succeed. But if we just do the meetings and then we forget, that's why you see there's no capitation, there's a lot of gaps, and those gaps now bring a problem, and the end result, we don't achieve what we expected to achieve. And the way you have said, like Hustler Fund, you see, Hustler Fund, people took that money, but for sure they were taking because it's government money. And most of them, they never benefited. They took it, they used it, and it went like that. That's not good. So the first thing we have to do, that better planning will give better result. Poor planning will give poor result.
Okay.
Yes.
Coming back to you, as you respond to the same issue, quickly, let's go now into the assessment. In terms of teachers who are trained in the private, in the public sector, there's an examination that is coming up next in October and November. In terms of preparations and the training of the teachers, because this will not be the normal education assessment that we have been used to in the primary school. So are your teachers even ready for this assessment?
For the assessment one, we have already done the first part of the assessment because they normally start in second term where we do the practical assessment. So yes, the first part has already been done. And now whatever we're waiting for is the summative assessment where it is the written exam. Yes, so that is what we're waiting for. Are our teachers trained? I would say the teachers are trained. Why? Because the assessment rubrics that we normally use are very detailed and they're very clear. So you will know who requires what and who to give what. So that is very clear. So I think the teachers should be trained, or our teachers are trained. Maybe in terms of responding to him is when he talked about the standard. So maybe what we expect from the Ministry of Education is, yes, the standard of what are we supposed to see or what should we expect as we implement the CBE. Of course, they already have a standard for what they expect from the school, but what do we expect as we implement this curriculum? So that standard is probably what he's talking about that we need to see or we need to be given as educators. Yes.
Okay.
Just to add on something small, you see, when we have standard, we must also have feedback. Do we have the feedback? Maybe Madam can help us. We have the feedback, so it can help there. It can help for the opportunity for improvement. Madam, please.
Do we have feedback?
Yes.
Maybe the feedback is there, but maybe there is no feedback channel. Because what we have from the Ministry of Education, they normally come and assess us. And we give them our challenges. And but what we don't have from them is what do they expect us to, how do they expect us to implement, or what do they need to see from the learners as we implement this CBE. Yes.
And so, of course, okay. As a response, given that we are running out of time, in terms of addressing Constatine, the main issue that has been there, we have a huge bulk of learners leaving school, well educated, they have the proper skills, but there are no jobs out there. So will this particular system address the needs that are in the market?
Okay, that's a very good question. And the some question is what I'm facing also, because I'm also root cause analysis, which is not in Kenya. And actually our main job, my main work is to create employments. But the problem we are having in this country is that the government itself is developed what we call complacency. They have not adopted new system. So as much as even we come with the CBC, there's a big problem in this country. Because if you go to the ministries, first thing is that they don't adopt new thing, and there's no a proper channel to come with the new thing. For example, we have road accident. Road accident is costing Kenya 450 billion. Corruption is costing Kenya 600 billion. This is 1 trillion. Who are stealing all this money? Who are causing the accident? It is we ourselves Kenyans. So this is the first priority. All this money going to the wastage should be, we have to look at the way to prepare to receive those students as they are coming. So our government has not created such avenue because they are not adopting with the new idea. Because people want to remain where they are. We call it complacency. And complacency is affecting this country. You can find that back 10 years backward, all the 8,000 students who are living in the higher learning institution. They're just idling around. Recently, we saw them on the street. The children were full here, claiming that actually things are not running properly. So government must ensure that they open the ways. As much as we prepare for CBC, they must open the way so that they convert all these losses into job opportunities. We must create a space so that people can enter. If there's no space, it's just like having a plane without airport. You cannot land.
We're running out of time. Let me allow 30 seconds at least to Susan so that we can cap it off and then throw it to Wycliffe. 30 seconds going forward, what would you like to see? Just 30 seconds.
Maybe going forward, I'd like to see the empowerment fund for schools. I'd also like to see the Ministry of Education taking more interest in what private schools are doing and even supporting private schools. Yes, and I would also, maybe I'm a bit positive, but I think CBE is a very good system, and we prepare our learners not just for employment, but even to be self-employed and to think on their own. So there are good things coming up, and I think CBE is a good system. So let us speak positively about it. It will bring great things to this country. Thank you. Thank
you so much. That is Susan Wanjiru, the director of Kuza International School, and Constatine Okello, the education policy expert. Thank you, sir, for making time for us. Thank you, madam, for joining us.
Thank you.
I want to hand it over to our very own, that is Wycliffe Okello, who is still with the Kenya Private School Association Chair Charles Onchome on his final remark. Wycliffe, if you can hear me, over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Abdi. And just on finalizing, we continued this conversation. Actually, now we are finalizing this conversation with still with the chair of the Kenya Private Schools Association, Mr. Charles Onchome. Just before we throw it back to Nairobi, to my colleague in the studio, you are talking about that empowerment fund. As we finalize, what will be your final word on this?
Thank you. The empowerment fund I'm talking about is a win-win situation for both the government and the private sector education. And I just hope, because many times it is scattered at the Treasury, that the Treasury will see light of how this is just like them investing also in this sector to be able to get good returns. I believe when they look at it from that perspective, then it is good. I know they have given funds to various players, and sometimes it does not come out well. But these are business people. I'm simply saying, empower them, improve the businesses, get better returns.
In terms of assessment?
In terms of assessment, I think I said things are okay because we have quite a number of players in the assessment. It's not one person, it's not one player. Sometimes people think it is NEC, it's not NEC. They have said there is the KICD, I said there is the TSC, and I said there is the Quality Assurance Director team.
Many other government agencies that take part in this particular continuous assessment. And just in 30 seconds as we finalize, what will be your final word?
I just want to say I've seen positive aspects in the ministry headquarters. We have had very good interactive sessions with the PS, and if this is taken forward, then the education sector will be, particularly the private sector, I think will be better managed than it has been before. And more so, the finance team from the Treasury should always also rush to the occasion and not only think of collection, but also investing in what they collect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And that is where we put a cap on the news check today. And my name is Wycliffe Okello, na kwa sasa tunataka kuchukua mapumziko mafupi, na tutakaporudi basi mwenzangu Kasichana Masha atakuwa akiungana nanyi katika kipindi cha Darubini Weekendi na pia Tamrini. Kwa sasa tunachukua hayo mapumziko mafupi, usibanduke.